Hello, ladies. Happy Labor Day. I hope everyone is having a relaxing day, not putting too much on their plate. We are hopping on here. I say we because Veronica, who is a member of this group, is going to be joining me shortly. But we're popping on here today to give you a little bit of inspiration as you go into your week. I'm going to add her into the Hangout now, or not the Hangout. I use Hangout all the time for work, so I'm used to saying to the Facebook Live now. So it should be adding her in, and then we will see her lovely little face. She's somewhere in New York right now. I think she's in New York right now. She travels a lot, as you'll find out. So pretty sure she's there, but you never really know with her. So we'll give her a second to pop on. But again, the reason we're doing this is to give you a little bit something to look forward to, because I've shared a couple different ways in which clients kind of end up as a result of camp and one-on-one work and any of these things. So as we add her in, Veronica is a perfect example of someone who did this work and started her own business, right? So I've tried to show you kind of each of the different areas. We have the example of Anne, who stayed at the same company. We have the example of Caitlin, who, now it says she wants to join, so let me just add her in. It says it's adding her, but we might have some tech issues, as sometimes happens. So I'll keep explaining, but Anne is a perfect example of someone who stayed at the same company. Caitlin is a perfect example of someone who, okay, let me bring them on camera again. So I'm going to have another request popping up for you, Veronica. Perfect example who's someone, hi.
Hi.
I was just giving a little context. I was saying last week I had an example of someone who stayed at the same job, someone who actually started a new job, and then you're my perfect example today of someone who started her own damn job. So, let's just mix it up. But thanks for joining. I'm so happy to see you. Where are you right now?
I'm in my backyard.
What a lovely.
I figure if you've got to work from home, you might as well work from outside, right?
I like that. I know we don't have a huge area out back, but I was doing it a little bit last week, and it's super nice. And then with Colorado sun, I was like, okay, this is enough heat after 20 minutes. It's like, that's good. But I'm so happy to see you. I was giving everyone some background. Most people will probably watch this back after the fact, just because the middle of the day on a Labor Day weekend, oftentimes people are off doing fun things. But really, as I was explaining, the reason we're doing these is to show people examples of success. Obviously, V knows, but for everyone else, I am Chris. If you are somehow don't know who I am and you're already in this group, I would be kind of surprised by that. But I'm Chris. I am the founder of Empowered Achievers, and I'm the founder of this group to build some sort of community where we can look at examples of the really great stuff behind doing the work you love, and also the challenges and the stressors and the days when you're just like, I just want someone to tell me what to do, which I know in entrepreneurship is definitely a thing which we can talk about. But I wanted to have V here today to tell you a little bit more about her experience. I obviously know it, so I'll ask the questions from everyone else's point of view. But thank you for joining us. I'm so glad to have you here.
Me too. I'm so happy to be here. I can't even tell you. I can't wait to tell everyone how amazing you are.
I was like, it's been over a year now that we've been working together, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of start out with, as I said, you started your own business, and we have plenty of things to talk about there. But before we even go to like all the great things that you've done since then, and as I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest thing for me to watch from you is the person you became through the process, right? So the work that you did is great, but also the changes that it's actually set up in you as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, hoping before we go into that, let's just start with like a year ago, right? When we started working together, can you tell everyone, because obviously I know already, but tell everyone a little bit more about where you were at, what you were where your headspace was at that time, what you were feeling, and what are the gaps? Because I always say, I'm like, Empowered Achievers obviously like filled in some sort of gap that wasn't filled in before. So can you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. God, I can't believe it was a year ago. So
I know.
My background is in ad agencies and tech. So I actually met Chris at our former agency way back in the day. And I was in a place where I had done really, really well in my career. I had worked at a couple agencies. I'd worked on big clients, small clients, and had, progressed my career to be like highly technical. And I had checked off every box that I was supposed to check off. And I still was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And it was this feeling of like, there's something else I want to be doing. And so When I came to Chris, I came to her with a list of like 25 other things I could be doing. Anything from like law to like travel the world to like volunteer with puppies, like you name it. I was like, I could do all these
I
things.
mean, that seems pretty sweet. Yeah.
Still can. But I came to her being like, there's all these things that I want to do, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And we really, really quickly got to this place of like, you're not doing anything wrong. You just could be doing something different that would feel better for you, which was like mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that idea of, I kind of want to touch on the idea of it's not wrong, it's just different. So often I think people forget when it comes to career development, it's kind of funny because I think a lot of times people think like, oh, if I am going to actually do something about it, that means I have to be really miserable. And I'm like, you could be, or you could not be, and you just want something different, right? That's where I was at, is I was like, I like this, and yet I still feel like this isn't it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, F this, I don't want to do this anymore, or anything like really salty or anything like that. It's just, I knew I needed to be doing something different. And I think people confuse those oftentimes. So I really like the idea that you kind of touched on of like, I just kind of knew and I had to figure it out and narrow it down too, because you're right on the nose. So often when people talk to me, they're like, and I want to do this and I want to do this. I'm like, oh, let's put some bumpers on that.
Well, that was, so when we did my intake together, I remember this so well because we went over it and I was like, whoa, this, like, it was fascinating to look at myself a year ago, because this person a year ago was so like confused and overwhelmed and like nervous. Like you can even see it when I wrote it out. I'm like, well, there's like 16 things and like a giant bulleted list with like question marks after all of them. Oh, yeah. And it's been so strange to look back just a year ago, because it's a complete, I don't want to say different person, but it's a completely different outlook and a completely different way of like thinking about things, for sure.
Well, and that idea of like putting as a super long list, that happens often. And I think a lot of the reason, and I get it because I've done it, is I see it a lot with women when you're feeling kind of out of control and you're like, I have no idea where I want to go. You turn to lists. At least I know that's my default too. I know that's yours, right? And so you're like, let me put everything on paper as if that's going to somehow solve everything, which is actually unrelated, but kind of my theory of why Pinterest is so successful as a business, because you're never going to make those recipes, but you feel like the peace of mind of being like, they're written somewhere in case one day I'm going to like do this piece of art or whatever it is. But right, I think it's like that comfort that comes along with feeling like you have it down somewhere.
Yeah.
And yet the problem is so many people don't know how to actually hone in on that. And so actually that kind of goes into the starting point of how you determine your path going forward. Like often what we talked about and what I always talk about with clients is focusing on what are the things that you love to do, and then say, okay, through that filter, yes, there's a zillion options. And that doesn't mean that I can never pursue these other zillion options, but with that filter, now that I know the things that I love to do, how can I actually make a decision that's right for me for now, knowing that like I can still decide to volunteer with puppies or travel the world or whatever those other things are down the road. But I think that piece of making a decision is often a challenge for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember, it's really funny because I remember having that conversation with you. It's still very vivid in my mind, where I was like, well, I have this list of jobs and like they're in all these different countries, but I have a list. And you were like, that, take a step back. Like, what do you like doing? And I was like, oh, that's such a weird way to think about it.
Yeah. People like to try and fast forward to that, like 10 steps down the road with like, can you just tell me what I should do? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I know you want to skip the work, but like, you got to do the work if you want to figure this out. I hate to tell you. So, yeah. So can you share with everyone who kind of watches this back about how that kind of process worked for you, of how you were able to make these changes? I mean, tell them more about where you're at now and kind of how you got there. Because again, I know, but they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently am starting my own business / have started it, but don't have a website yet, which Chris has been helping me with. But I have my own business, and I am a freelancer and consultant. So back in October, I will get to why I decided to take the leap and do my own thing. And now I'm an educator. So I teach in classrooms. I do one-on-one classes around ad tech. around advertising education, and really get to help companies and people. And it's awesome. And as you can see, I work from home in my lovely backyard if it's nice enough. And I travel a lot, a lot.
Yeah, you've been to some cool places.
Yeah, I think probably the coolest place on paper this year is Dubai. That was awesome. That was for a client. But probably my favorite that I just did for fun was my 3-week road trip down the Southeast. So
Yeah.
I rented a yellow Mustang convertible and did 6 different cities down 3 weeks on the Southeast coast. So
You know, just living the dream.
normal.
Yeah. Well, so that's kind of where you're at now. Can you explain how you knew that was the right leap to take? Because back in October, right, from going to the point of coming with a zillion different options and trying to narrow them down to actually having them narrowed down enough to make that decision. Mm-hmm. Because I just want to caveat saying like, oh, I'm starting my own business. He has been doing this for like damn near a year. Yeah. Has been doing this training. So like, let's just call a spade here. But
yeah,
can you explain to everyone how you made that leap and knew it was the right time, etc.?
Yeah, thank you for calling out my wording, as you often do. I'm not starting my own business. I'm in the middle of going through building a business.
Yeah, she has started already. This is past tense. You know I'm a language police.
I know, I love it. So I went through this whole list, and Chris and I did a lot of activities around, you know, what do you like doing? What don't you like doing? What kind of environment do you like? Like, what types of work do you like doing? All these different questions, in addition to talking about limiting beliefs, which is a game changer if you are an overachiever, and talking about kind of what's holding you back mentally that you probably don't even see. And as we went through kind of a couple months of this, it became really clear that my quote unquote side gig was actually what I wanted to be doing.
Uh-oh. I don't know if anyone else sees this, but it looks a little frozen on my end. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. So I realized that through these questions that my side gig that I had was actually what I wanted to be doing as my primary career and my primary job. And it was like this light bulb of like, oh, I didn't actually think I could do that. I didn't actually think I could take something that I enjoyed doing so much and turn it into something full time, especially outside of, you know, outside of a 40-hour a week in like corporate environment. I didn't think I could do it. And it never even occurred to me that that was an option until we had talked about it for a couple months. And then it became so obvious, like, why wouldn't I be doing that? That's just silly.
Yeah. Well, and that idea of, oh, I didn't realize this was an option is super common because so many people think, because they've heard all these things, right, for their whole life of like, work has to be hard work and it's called work for a reason and it's not called fun or what, all of the plethora of things that people have heard. And that they've taken on and kind of gone this, okay, well, if it's something that I enjoy, then that probably means I can't get paid by it. Really, the sweet spot that we're trying to get you to is like doing the stuff that you're like, how is this a job? That's where we want you to be. I think that, and it also has the misconception that means it's the never work a day in your life mentality, which I super don't believe, and we've talked about, right? It doesn't
That's
mean
not true.
that there's no work to it. There's still days where you're like, I don't want to do this thing. But the point is that you know why you're doing it and you can kind of understand that this is the work of the work that you're doing. It's the one that you can get on board with spending your time on. So I think there's something to be said for that. And from my perspective, that's what makes your you such a great client, is that you really were able to say like, okay, you were willing to have that conversation. A lot of people don't want to have to look at like, oh, well, why do I think that it has to be such hard work and where is this coming from? So kudos to you for that, my friend.
Thanks to you as well.
Yeah. So I just dribbled a little bit.
That's all right. Nobody noticed.
Yeah, you know.
It's fine.
Well, now that I've talked about it. So can you explain a little bit more too? So since you actually made the leap and started doing that thing, once you were actually in that business, can you explain a little more some of the work that we've done since then that has helped you? Because I think oftentimes people are like, okay, well, I figured it out. Done. But the reality is, as I say often, is always like, you're not, there's never going to be a point where you're like, I've developed, I'm done, I grew all I needed to grow. And if so, I would be very alarmed. right? But I think you're a perfect example of someone who has made this more of your lifestyle of like, okay, let's look at these things and let's know that I'm going to get way stronger with my mindset. And yet there's still going to be days when something weird comes up. So can you explain kind of that process in the latter part of this last year too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I came into this with a goal of like, what the heck am I going to do in my life? Like, where should I be? And to your point around I thought that was going to be it. It's going to be like, thanks so much for your help, Chris. Cool. But there were so many things that we've worked on since, like belief systems, core belief systems. So, we look at them in the sense of like a career, but it also applies to kind of what you want from life and how you want to live your life. So like, it's been really interesting because in working through belief systems, in working through building, having those core beliefs allows you to build a structure, not only for your career, but for your life. And so it's around like the people you want to spend time with. It's around how you want to spend your time. So, I'm a late riser always and forever, but I realized that as a late riser, not only was I doing that, I was also sitting on my phone for like an hour, just like, and you don't even realize it. You're just like scrolling around, whatever. And in talking about that and being like, I don't have any time, which I feel like we say all the time, right? Like, I don't have any time. I'm so busy.
Yeah.
In talking through that, it was like, oh, you have a ton of time. It's just being mindful of it and like thinking about, how do I want to spend my time? How do my core beliefs apply to this? And, one of my core beliefs isn't let's sit on social media, so it's pretty easy to say like, that's not super helpful.
Yeah.
We've also done a lot of work just around like the types of clients that I want to work with, the types of work that I want to do. So, again, as a first time entrepreneur, first time I've started a business, like I feel like, you kind of figure it out as you go along. And one of the myths I feel like is like, well, you started a business, now go find clients. That's it,
Yep.
But there's actually a lot more around like, what types of work do you want to be doing? What types of clients are your ideal clients? Like what can you provide the most value in doing? Like there's so many questions that don't occur, at least to me, unless there's someone outside being like, hey, like think about this. And you're like, whoa, a whole new world.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, that's the joy of accountability. I have the same tendencies as you do, which is why I work with coaches and I need accountability too, because I know if it was just me left to think about things, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll do that later. But right now I have to watch an entire true crime documentary or whatever it is that I feel like I need to be doing instead. So yeah, having the like check-ins for it is really big, and having that accountability for it, I think is huge, and something, you show up to those, which is why you're able to make such big changes. So yeah. In the other thing I wanted to ask was, because you mentioned too, I was looking for kind of to know where I wanted to go. Do you feel like you have that? Like, do you feel like you have your kind of big picture clarity on that now, and you can come back to it? Because that's always what my goal is to instill. But obviously, like, do you feel like you got what you were looking for in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think, to be honest, like, and we talked about this, like, going into this, I was just like, I need to know what job I'm supposed to have, like almost like a BuzzFeed quiz, right? Of like, fill out all this stuff and it'll pop out a job for you.
Don't even start me on those. Come on.
But definitely got that. And I mean, what's interesting is I don't think we've ever had the conversation of like, you're supposed to have this job, or me being like, I'm supposed to have this job. It's been more around, what fits into what you want from a job perspective, from a career perspective, from a lifestyle perspective, from the actual work itself. And so I feel like I want to say, no, I didn't get what I sought out to find. Instead, I got a lot more than that. So it's not, I've never come away from a conversation being like, this is the job, sign my name on the dotted line. Like, I got way more than that. I got a structure that I never really knew could exist, and allows me to kind of make decisions about everything.
That makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. And I think that, right, the idea of like, oh, the same questions with my clients, these all stem from the same issue, which is no one ever says, what do I want with this? They're so busy filling in what the expectations are from every different person except for themselves, that once you start to ask yourself those questions, a lot of things change, like pretty immensely. So it's super fun for me to watch. Obviously, you are such a great example of that. Is there anything else that you want to add on it? I know you made some really big changes, so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like how that kind of feels as a whole, looking back on the fact that it's been like a year.
Yeah, it's honestly it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Not to talk you up, but no, really.
Don't make me cry.
So one of the things I love about working with you is that you're not just like a coach, right? It's not just like, well, we have our time and then like don't like I don't exist, right? And so I can share this with everyone. I had texted Chris the other day. I was coming back on a flight and I had watched a movie where this guy visits his kid self. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and that whole shtick of like, what would you say to your childhood self if you met them has never really like hit me. And then on this plane at like 9:30 in the morning, I'm like, oh my God, I have so many things I would say to my younger self.
Yeah.
And of course, the woman next to me is like, but the thing
planes are weird.
planes are weird.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that I was like, I would tell myself that like, you're going to be flying back from Cincinnati you're going to be flying back from Texas for work. Yeah. You're going to be going to Cincinnati next week. You're going to be so happy. And it's going to be a joy and a calm that like you can't possibly imagine. And a huge part of that is literally because of this, because I was able to actually find, what brings me into a good place. And yeah, so don't cry.
I might. That's amazing. That makes me so happy. I haven't heard that full spiel, so that makes me super honored that you allowed me to be in that situation to serve in that role for you. That makes me so
You're
happy.
Like, I shouldn't have asked her on this call.
No, guys, this is the best. This is my best day ever. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. I'm so glad to hear that, and that's the reason that this work is like, that's the reason why I started Powered Achievers, is for that example, that response right there, is this idea of your work changes, your life changes, and yet the most important thing is always how you change through the process of it. And you are a glowing example of that I could not be more proud of. And it's been so fun to watch, from the fact of like, when you started, you were not in the headspace that you are now by a long shot.
No.
You were super stressed, a lot of things going on. So like, the fact that you are here now shows what actually putting in that work can do, because you show up and do it, and that's why you're in such a different place.
Yeah.
So my kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah, that's the other thing I would just add. Like, I used to be the biggest ball of stress on the planet. Like, it was bad. Like, I've been a very stressed out person my entire career, and now I've seen people I haven't seen in a while, and there's these comments all the time of like, wow, you seem so happy, you're so calm, or like, you don't seem stressed out. And it is amazing how like a year of work can shift that so much. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, coming into you, I remember our first call, I was like, I don't know, like, what am I gonna do? And now I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm really excited for our call today. Here's like the 5 things I want to chat about.
Yeah. Well, and even like, this is you looking back at a year, but even within like a month or two, I remember you're starting to be like, oh, okay, it goes to this place of, once you take ownership, everything else can change. Yeah. And I think, it's so nice for me to hear what great experiences clients have had. And yet the thing I always want to underline is the fact that like, I'm giving you the steps, but you're the one doing the work. And unless you're willing to do the work, nothing's going to change. And so like, I'm so glad that you appreciate the process, but more importantly, I want you to realize too, like, that's you. You did it, not me. I just was there to be like, do this for homework. and just like be your language coach a little. Yeah, exactly. But that makes yeah, it's been such a pleasure. You have changed so incredibly much. I'm so proud of you, and I can't wait to see in a year from now what's different, because I can only imagine you're gonna be, I don't know what you will have done by then. It's gonna be really fun. I'm glad to be here for the ride.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you with me. We'll see. Maybe we'll go on a crazy road trip. Who knows?
Oh my gosh, I have been, now this is the fun part, you get to kind of turn into friends through the process too. So like, it'll be like, come stay with us in Denver, we have a guest room. I don't invite all my clients to my guest room, but it's been a while. But yeah, thank you so much for joining and explaining to everyone the situation you've been in. Is there anything else you want to mention, or do we cover?
No, I think we covered everything, like game changer, life changer, et cetera, right?
This is great. I almost cried. There were highs, there were lows. It's a good one today. But yeah, I'm so happy to have V share her story with you because obviously everyone who's watching this back, this is the biggest thing I talk about, right? There's not one solid way in which this work has to look like. And again, I think it's really hard because people often want the like, can't you tell me where I'm going to be at the end of this? Like, I can't. And that's the hard part. But you have to really sign on for the process and know you're going to be at a drastically different point. What that looks like is TBD, and we can go into the conversation about that. And that's my job, is to be there every step of the way to give you the structure so that you just know your homework each week and you know the things you need to be doing, because if you add them up, that's how you make drastic changes. And yet, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know exactly what the future holds. But for anyone, so obviously we mentioned her business. You want to share the name, or is that TBD until it's launched? TBD?
No, the name is Premium Unicorn.
And she's working on her site, and so it's coming soon. It's for all people. Actually, you can tell them more, but it's for all people in kind of the ad tech world who are looking to sort out the BS and stop having buzzwords and stop having like conversations where they don't actually know what's going on. So if you need help with yourself so that you can actually speak to your team better, if you need help learning some of the newest tools and skills and fun things in the ad tech world, V is your girl. Obviously, I'll have you add anything else, but this is, you can find her. Once her site's up, we'll definitely share it. But then also in the meantime, what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they or someone they know is like, hey, we need someone to kind of explain what's going on because I'm very confused?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. Send me a message on LinkedIn. I just got the chat app, so I will be ready at any time.
Hey, I will put the link for her LinkedIn below. I'll put it in the comments. And so everyone reach out to her. She is amazing at what she did, which is how she has it as her own business now, where she gets to travel to Dubai and other amazing places, which is awesome. So you'll see her in the group. I'll tag her info below. And for anyone who's ready to actually do those kind of changes, as I mentioned, Career Clarity Camp, I'm doing my last calls this week. It's going to be starting next week, which is really exciting. It's the last one of 2018. And so really, if you feel like you're at the point where you're like, okay, I've been talking about this forever and I haven't been doing anything about it, signing up to go through the process where you actually have steps and you have stuff that you have to do makes it palatable, and you can just follow those, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, whoa, look at all these changes that have happened in my life. So that's really why I created this, is to have the, as V said, I don't want it to ever be that kind of thing where you go in and then you're like, okay, you know, you've done your thing. We're not here for you. Like, my goal is to always be the person who you text when you're on a plane and thinking about what you would tell yourself when you were younger. So I am so glad you joined us. For anyone who is curious about camp, you can either comment CCC below or just direct message me, and I will chat with you this week and we can talk about if it's a good fit for you, because I always like to make sure if it's the right fit. But yeah, and if you have any other questions, thank you so much for joining us, Pete. It has been such a pleasure to see you. And yeah, I'm so in your corner. See you in the group, and I appreciate all of you.
I appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.